Welcome to the Ellevate podcast, conversations with women changing the face of business. And now your hosts, Kristy, Wallace, and Maricella, Herrera.
Hello and welcome to the Ellevate podcast. This is your host, Kristy Wallace, with my co-host, Maricella Herrera. Maricella, hello today.
Hello. How's it going, Kristy?
It's good. It's good. I am enjoying the sunshine. I think it is, a silver lining during this time. And, I've never realized how impacted I am by the weather than when it becomes, such a guiding light in my day. So, yes, I'm doing good. And Maricela, I am missing you, though.
Same. It's been so long since we've been in the same place.
I don't know, in so many ways, this time has become more normalized and you become accustomed to it. And then yet there's still many things that I think will never be normalized. And part of that for me is being around the people that I work with and, that I have friendships with and deep connections with. You and I have spent, I think, 6 years now working side by side, helping to build the Ellevate network. And so certainly not being able to sit across the table from you and have those debates and discussions is much missed.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I really can't wait. I know it's going to be a while and who knows what that's going to even look like. But I do miss being in our office and having those discussions. And, there's something about being able to have meaningful conversations in person. I'm not saying that you can't do it online, but there's some passionate debating. There's something to be said for in-person passionate debating about things.
Yes, yeah, that's very true. Well, I'm excited to tee up our guest today. Sehreen Noor Ali is just an inspiring individual, parent, business leader, change maker, thought leader, and she's doing so much important work with her company, Visible Health, where she's really looking at how we create support and community around parents with children with special needs, and how we use that support and community to also create change in the world and drive more transparency around, the needs of these communities and these parents and these children. It's really important to the work that she's doing. And, she's incredibly passionate about it. And I think, especially during this time, as many parents have lost access to some of the resources, particularly around schooling and education and therapies that they had pre-pandemic, being able to tap into a community that can share best practices, expertise, and learnings is incredibly important. It's core to what we do at Ellevate and certainly core to what Sehreen has been growing with Visible Health.
Yeah, can't wait to hear your interview with her.
Excellent. Well, let's get to it. Sehreen, thank you so much for joining us today on the Ellevate podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's really lovely to have you here, and I've been watching your journey for some time and some of the really important work that you're doing, and I would be honored if you would share your story with our community a little bit about how you got to where you are and what you're doing now.
Yeah. So where I am right now is I'm co-founding a startup in the pediatric health space, creating a repository for parents on early childhood health, crowdsourcing information from parents to help parents navigate their treatment options for their children. And it's inspired by my own journey. I sort of came out recently as a special needs mom. My daughter was diagnosed with a medical condition 2 years ago, and I left my career in ed tech to care for her. But before that, so I was in ed tech for 5 or so years doing business development, sales for for-profit education startups. And before that, I was working as a public servant and diplomat with the State Department. So I've had a couple different iterations.
I would say that government, ed tech, and health tech
are like three of the last frontiers in terms of, I mean, just areas that need transparency, that need innovation, that need change, where there's still such not just confusion, but also inequality in terms of access to information services.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, everything about your story is like, I want to be you. And I want to, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit more about your company that you're working on today.
Mm-hmm.
As many of our listeners know, I mean, I'm really passionate about healthcare personally, and then just more holistically when we look at our society and how access to information and community can really be transformational for people.
Yeah. So the name of our company is Visible Health. It'll probably change. It's a working title. But it came from exactly what you're saying, which is a lack of easy to access high quality information about health versus about medical conditions. Because as parents, you need medical information, but your child is holistic. They're navigating the education system. They're navigating things like early intervention, which are therapies like speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy. That actually sits completely outside the medical system. And so you can go to your doctor and they're going to say, well, your child needs speech therapy, but they have no idea how to help you access it, and they don't even know the technical aspects of speech. So like I talked to a speech therapist and she's like, one of my biggest frustrations with pediatric care is that pediatricians aren't trained in speech therapy. And so what we found, and because I was one of those parents, is that parents are already asking parents questions about what to do. Like, what school should I send my child to? My child is waking up 10 times a night, and I think it's more than just a behavioral thing. Who do I go see for help? And so there's all these gaps in information where parents are actually the best able to help another parent. But when you go on those platforms like Facebook, you have no way to guarantee that the parent that you're asking has a similar situation with their child, and you don't know if that information is credible. And so what we're trying to build is actually a vetted crowdsourced platform. So when you think about Wikipedia is a crowdsourced encyclopedia that replaced the long-standing ones, and that was from crowdsourced information. So there is a way to actually ensure that when you get information from a lot of people, you can keep it high quality, and that's the bet we're making.
Would it be okay if I ask you some personal questions?
Yeah.
So you mentioned in your introduction that you just came out as a parent of a child with special needs.
Yeah.
Was that process for you? I mean, was it something, was it a recent identity for you? Is it just a recent identity that you feel comfortable sharing? And what was that process like? And I think that many in our community and many in my personal community have struggled with that identity and the public or not public nature of it and how to talk about it. And in part because there's still such lack of, I just think, transparency within our society around a lot of these conversations. Yeah. So would you mind sharing just a little bit more about that process for you?
So I struggle too. I say it and then mentally I sort of step back because I haven't really adapted to it. It's similar to when I became a mother and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm a mom. What does that mean? I don't, in the first several months of having my first daughter, I was like, that's so weird. I'm a mother. And it took a while to settle in. And this is also taking a while to settle in. And a lot of it is because I think people have perceptions about it that are negative. And so, Eliza Factor's book, A Strange Beauty, it's really just really beautiful.
Eliza is a phenomenal person.
Yeah.
And Extreme Kids, which is our organization, I encourage everyone to check it out. It's a great organization.
It's amazing. And I sort of like, it's this perception of like, what are people going to think? And what I love about her book is that she's also talking about the beauty of her life. And the last thing you want when you say special needs is for someone to feel sorry for you. And there's that balance between wanting to be seen about these sort of unique struggles that you have with your children and the very delicate other side of that, which is people feeling sorry for you. And that's why it's hard for me. And I came I came out as a special needs mom when I was doing the Startup Generator program. And it was easier for me to say it because I knew I wanted to create a solution on it rather than saying it just outside of this deep desire to create a business solution around it. So it had to be attached to another purpose because I wasn't yet comfortable just sort of saying it, you know?
And as you are, sharing this story, what type of support did you have with your pre-existing networks? Because you're creating a community to help others, which I think is really important. But I could be making some assumptions here that are incorrect, is that the communities that currently exist are not always well equipped to help us at different stages of our life and what happens in our life and the different identities that exist or become relevant.
I think because, my co-founder and I went out with this idea that we had to actually help people access better information, it was a very clear way for people to jump in and help, right? And so people were like, oh, I can help you get this kind of earned media. I can help you connect to this parent. I can connect you to this investor. And it was just much easier for them to know what to do. Because I think sometimes that's what people are looking for. Like people, I've generally found networks just want to help, but it was packaged in a way that they could. And so that has been really helpful. And I think the other thing that's been helpful is that some of the networks that I've relied on since creating this business in October are networks that I've been part of for a long time. And so there's like a narrative where people have said to me, like, I've watched your narrative for a while, and so can see what I might have done in the past that is, high quality work. And so they can take a bet a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So how do you see community then tapping into access, in the sense that, you're talking about how fragmented some of the special services, if it's speech or occupational therapy, to the traditional medical establishment. So it's one, just understanding, what are the resources out there?
Yeah.
But there's a second piece to that, which I think is the financial piece, which is critically important and incredibly hard to navigate because each city is different and state's different, and trying to understand how to access funding, but then also how to plan for that within your family.
Yeah.
How do you see those pieces, not just community support, but information to specific knowledge and resources and around providers, around financial, like it's a big problem to tackle. And I'm so excited that you are.
So the way that we look at the problem is if we can extract information from parents who have been there and done that, then we can serve as air traffic control for another parent who's going through something similar. So we can help the parent who needs to access financial resources by pairing them with a parent who knows about those financial resources. And so for us, it's an information exchange. The question about community is very interesting. A lot of people ask us about community. So we're not actually building a community right now. What we're building is a way to share information across people where we sit in the middle. Because I think that platforms like Facebook actually do the community part well. And what the opportunity is to do the information and the data part better. And so, there might be a point in the future where we will look at how we can create community thoughtfully, but our number one priority in this early stage that we're in is actually saying, you probably have a community already. Let us help you get better information so that you can go to your doctor and ask these questions, so that you can call early intervention at this number, and this is how you advocate for your child based on what someone else has done.
What have your experiences been starting a business? I mean, you've worked in tech in the past, but I think doing it, starting your own business, realizing your own vision is something very different.
So fun. I have to say every day has been amazing. I'm really tired because I'm still figuring out. It's not balance. It's almost like my own excitement. Like I literally do wake up every morning excited to go to work and do it, which is a huge privilege. And for me, it's a sign of like I'm aligned to do what I'm doing. I think the other thing is it's actually been really interesting to be now engaging with investors. And I've had actually a generally very positive experience, which is not necessarily what you hear as like
we're not medical professionals. We don't know how things are connected.
Right.
And so you're constantly trying to say, well, here's the big picture, and I'm going to give you, the macro or, all the micro details, and you tell me what it means.
Completely.
But in those short period of time, and also when we're talking about kids, and there's a lot with them that is more observed than understood, and that they can't communicate to you or don't even know to communicate, and there's a lot of factors you don't even know what to look for.
You don't even know.
And going into those moments when you have that professional in front of you and feeling like, okay, I've watched for the right things. I have the right questions. Here's all the big picture.
Yeah.
That is the data.
That's
right.
The data.
It's back to what you're saying. You're solving for. You're creating. It's all of these data points, and what does it mean?
And I think we make a lot of assumptions about what the medical system is supposed to do and what's out of scope. Like, therapy is considered non-clinical intervention. Early intervention that you can get in all states is not clinical, right? So they don't. When we talked to the pediatricians when we were doing customer discovery, they said we don't actually know what to tell parents about how to access those services. We're in New York, so we have a lot of great doctors, but if you're in a place that doesn't have the sheer supply of doctors that we have, what you're also up against is you're not getting access to specialists. And oftentimes that pediatrician may not know what specialist you need to go to. So I see questions on Facebook all the time. My child has a speech delay. What do I do? Because they're not getting better in speech therapy. And someone will be like, did you go to the neurologist? And then they're like, but why would I go to the neurologist? And oftentimes it's because there's things that happen in the brain that affect speech, but you don't think about that. The second thing is, did you see a geneticist? Why would I see a geneticist? Because there are genetic disorders that affect speech. How do you just know that? You don't just know that. And if you don't have a geneticist, which in a lot of places you don't have any, you don't know that there's actually a service where you can get genetic tests done by mail, right? There's all this navigational information that we assume the medical system has perfectly, and nothing could be further from the truth.
There's so many identities, and we started the conversation kind of talking about identities, and they're complex and they're intersectional, and there's a lot of different pieces to it. But my mom worked, and both my parents worked growing up, but they worked very different jobs and different careers that looked differently. They both found success. They both found fulfillment. A lot of people I know are working in the home or in other areas, and what's powerful is exposing the next generation to multiple different identities and narratives. So, but not just exposing, which I think is critically important in media and others, but tangible.
Yeah.
Like, how do they see what working means, what that looks like, and start to later in life identify that for themselves?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because one thing that I've been struggling a lot with is perfectionism, and this idea of like having to do it all, but having to do it right, like put every time. And it took someone else pointing this out to me that my daughter was like that. So we were out with family at a restaurant, and she spilled a cup of water, and she freaked out. And it was such a huge moment for me afterwards, because I feel like she gets that from me. It's like I don't give myself permission to mess up at all. And she's picking that up. And so it's weird because like I'm starting this business and I want it to be really successful, but I also need to make room that things aren't going to go perfectly, because not only is it affecting my business, like I have a child who thinks that's the way to do business. And like, that's not what I want, right? And you see so many women who are like, got straight A's in school, went to a good school, and then it's like, but I have to be perfect. And you lose yourself so much, in the process.
Well, and there's a big difference between feeling you have to be perfect and holding yourself to a standard of which you have complete control over those variables, and then being in situations like a business where there's a lot that's out of your control. You can work so hard to get funding, and it depends on the person on the other end of that conversation. You can work so hard to, hit a deadline, but you're relying on other people. And so I think that there's this big piece of, giving yourself the the freedom to not be perfect.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, all of the other times when things are out of your control become,
Right.
I think, harder to deal with,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Right. And there's like an association that I think we had as a society that like success means being perfect, particularly if you're a woman or a girl.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to decouple that. Like,
Yeah.
right, for me, success is liberation. Like, I feel way more liberated doing this business than I did in previous parts of my career. And one of the reasons I didn't go back to ed tech when I was in September versus starting this company is because I didn't want to be accountable to anyone. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to have to tell someone that I had to go to take my daughter to the doctor. Yeah. And like, even if people are understanding, I just didn't want to do it. Like, there was a part of me that's like, I need a little bit more dignity in my life than having to keep getting permission from someone to take care of my child. Mm-hmm. And so what I wish for my daughters when they have careers is like, I want them to be liberated to do what they want for things that are in their control. Mm-hmm. And for me right now, that means helping them cultivate a certain mindset, and then through education, cultivating skills that might be relevant to them always. And it's not, and part of that is like, it is not being perfect.
Yes, I love it. So good. So I wanted to ask you some lightning round questions, which is fun. I find I've learned so much about people in these few questions. Just answer in one sentence or less. Are you introvert or extrovert?
I am both, with a slight inclination to being introverted.
Favorite day of the week?
Wednesday.
Why?
Because I really like working, and I also like the weekend, so it's equally distant,
Okay.
Yeah, fair. Depending on the week and how it goes, yeah.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl, totally.
Who's your dream dinner guest?
Oh, this is so hard. I want to say Oprah or Richard Branson, because they're both so damn creative, and they do it on their own terms.
Yep. So that's good. What's your pet peeve?
People not doing double opt-in introductions over email. I cannot stand it.
So meaning people not asking your permission to introduce you to someone before they just introduce you to someone?
Because I feel like, I'm like, this is my time. You need to ask me if you're going to borrow my time.
Yeah.
And especially now that I'm a parent, I'm like, no. There's no time. Like, you have to ask.
Yeah. And I think that so I'm really happy you said that, because I do think that is a important part of networking, which is just asking permission first.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, hey, would you mind if I introduce you to this person?
Totally.
Because whenever someone introduces me to someone, I feel like it's not just a reflection on the person they introduced me to, but then the person who did the introduction. If I don't respond, and I can't not respond. Like my nature need to respond to people.
Right.
So yeah, I like that a lot. Thank you for saying that. Monday morning staple. What's the thing or activity, food, whatever?
Everything is like an IV drip of coffee for me.
Yeah. What's your favorite recent read?
So I just joined a book club, and they asked me the same question, and I'm going to give you the same answer. Okay. Dragons Love Tacos too.
Oh.
Because the books I read are the books that my kids read. And the Pout Pout Fish. It's pretty good.
I liked Dragons Love Tacos 1.
I like it more 2.
But 2 does have a time machine in it.
But it's a little confusing. I actually should just buy 1, because we have 2 and we read it all the time. There is a part in the time machine where I'm like, that doesn't make sense to a kid, because it didn't make sense to me the first 20 pages of the times. But I like it.
That's good. Your top self-care practice?
I think because it's so top of mind for me, is like letting myself practice not being perfect. Like, I totally forgot about my daughter's therapy session yesterday morning, and it's private, which means that I owe them a payment. And I was like, you know what? Don't freak out. It's okay. You have so much on your plate. Yeah. It's amazing that you remember all the other ones, And so I was like, okay. It is a practice, but it's going well.
And what's one question or thought you'd like to leave with our listeners?
So one of the favorite questions that a set of friends we've talked about is, what kind of ancestor are you going to be? We think about our families as like 2 generations on the top and the bottom. But actually, we have influence over people that are coming after us. And I sort of like the idea of thinking, what can you establish as habits or mindsets that can get passed on?
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. All right, Sehreen, thank you for joining us on the Ellevate podcast. This was a fantastic conversation, and wishing you lots of luck.
Thank you.
In all of your endeavors, and happy to support.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to Ellevate. If you like what you hear, help a girl out. Subscribe to the Ellevate podcast on iTunes, give us 5 stars, and share your review. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Ellevate NTWK, that's Ellevate Network, and become a member. You can learn all about membership and all the great things that Ellevate Network is doing at our website, www.ellevatenetwork.com. That's ELLEVATE network.com. And special thanks to our producer, Catherine Heller. She rocks. And to our voiceover artist, Rachel Griesinger. Thanks so much, and join us next week.